To me, it's very clear at this point that Gregg Berhalter has casted John Brooks on the U.S. men's national team. In the last World Cup qualifying window, Berhalter did state that there is nothing other than form preventing Brooks from being called up, while calling up two out-of-season options, Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman, which I think makes sense considering how they had performed so far in World Cup qualifying. And then Mark McKenzie, who's pretty much just a rotational center back in Belgium, and all he did was warm the bench. In reality, did not come off the bench for any of those 3 matches in the qualifying window. So yeah, you have Chris Richards picking up a foot injury, and it's looks to be not as severe as it may have looked. It looked really nasty in the Canada match, the injury he picked up. And of course, with Berhalter also not really trusting McKenzie at this point, I think just really Berhalter needs to look at some other options at center back. I wouldn't be surprised if he just brings Aaron Long back in the mix, because Long is really one of Berhalter's boys. But the two center backs I think he should look at are Cameron Carter-Vickers and Eric Palmer-Brown. I really think they deserve a look in the next qualifying window. They don't have to necessarily even play. These deserve to be in camp with their player profile, with the form they've been in recently. When you look at Cameron Carter-Vickers is a very interesting name for me to pronounce sometimes. But while the Scottish League is really not, considered the strongest league, but you play for a club at the level of Celtic in a heated title race, there's so much pressure every time he steps on the pitch. He's never really been great on the ball, but from what I've seen, he's actually improved a lot in that area. A lot of the matches at the youth level when he was playing as like a 17, 18-year-old with the U20s, he really was very raw, but he was so good physically even at that point. That's really been what his game is. He's not really going to break lines with passing or anything, but he's very physical. And if we're going to play guys like Zimmerman or Robinson who are not great or even good with the ball at their feet, you might as well look at someone who's in form and playing at a really good level. He's only missed one Scottish Premiership match for Celtic. He's a lock starter for his club. That's, again, in a heated title race with Rangers. And that's enough to at least see him in the next U.S. men's national team camp. He doesn't even have to play, but he deserves a look. And of course, even if he doesn't, at least in the qualifying window, Nations League, he definitely should see some time and some friendlies and all that in the build-up to the World Cup as well. Especially if we're gonna not utilize John Brooks. These are two options to look at. Then I think a player who's really a different profile to Carter-Vickers. They actually played together on some of the U20 teams as well. And I remember one of the tournaments, actually, Palmer-Brown was playing the center defense mid because he's a different profile. With him, it's more about his positioning and his passing ability. Always been very strong technically, comfortable on the point, again, to the point where he played defensive mid at times. For the U.S. youth national teams. He's broken into the starting 11 at Troyes after signing a permanent deal with the club. I think being on the permanent deal is kind of what helped him get a look, because a lot of times when you have a player on loan who likely won't sign permanently, a lot of times those players don't really get a good look. But in his last 5 matches, he's gotten a full 90, looked very good in a 1-0 loss to Lyon, held 2 clean sheets, but it struggled in his most recent match was a 5-1 loss. But if he just keeps, he gets over that poor performance and stays consistent, he really deserves a call-up, in my opinion. I mean, we just know how stubborn Berhalter can be is the main thing. It took him way, way too long to give Luca de la Torre a chance. He really called up his MLS boys. He relied on them so much. I can see it from the perspective of the Gold Cup, some recency bias and stuff like that, but it's just a different level, obviously, a Gold Cup compared to, World Cup qualifiers. In the Gold Cup, we struggled our way to that victory. We did not really look good in any of the matches for a full 90 with some of those players. So I just think it's a lot of that little kind of recency bias and stuff like that, and also maybe underestimating the level of our opponents in World Cup qualifiers. And some of the decisions obviously were terrible. That some of the midfield in that first match versus Canada at home, the Panama match was obviously awful. With the selection of that midfield was terrible. Honduras, the first half was really bad. So I think really in the end, a lot of our limitations are coming down to Berhalter, because I do think our 4 center backs should be John Brooks, Chris Richards, Miles Robinson, Walker Zimmerman, because of Robinson Zimmerman have shown, to be in a strong partnership together, and it just goes against really what Berhalter said he wanted from his center backs. As he wanted center backs who are good on the ball, and they're not good enough on the ball to really break lines. But at this point, it doesn't seem like that's what he wants from his center backs. So that's where I think you might as well bring in a guy like Carter-Vickers. But if you do want to have that technical ability, or even have a backup defensive mid, maybe another option there. And I think Palmer Brown has covered fullback as well. He's another player to look at in this last World Cup qualifying window. If Richards is still hurt, and we're not going to call up John Brooks, but airplane flying over. Sorry, I live right next to the airport, but with that, let me know your thoughts on some other players we should maybe get an opportunity in the next World Cup qualifying window. There's a couple other players in my mind to me, like Alan Sonota, Alex Mendez. Some players I think should really get an opportunity, in my opinion, over guys like Jordan Morris, Paul Ariola. We'll see though. I mean, Gregg's gonna Gregg, man. So it's gonna be interesting though coming up in March. There's still plenty of time to go. Bit over a month away, and I'm looking forward to see what we see of the last World Cup qualifying window, both results wise and the hysteria of a roster release. But with that, thank you all for tuning in. Hit that like button, please. I love you. I'll be signing out now, and I'll catch you guys later.